Hey, good evening all. Another depressing day under the ridge. Blue skies, cumulus, and as we close out May here, this is definitely not what we expect, but it does happen sometimes, and one year that kind of stands out in my mind is 1988. And I think there have been a couple of others, 2006, I think, 2007, somewhere in the late zeros. We had a kind of a bad year also. So anyway, welcome to the stream, and we're back. And I do need to let you know that we're going to try to head to a convention down in Nashville tomorrow. So I'm not sure if we're going to have the live stream tomorrow. I may try doing it on the road. But I think most likely we may be down a couple days, and maybe Sunday. We'll see what happens. All right, so let's head into the charts. Oh yeah, one other thing I wanted to share with you guys. This is something I've been trying to figure out. Let me bring up the YouTube thing. Yeah, this is where I start the stream here. In the YouTube creator thing, we've got this stream now, and you can set all your settings. And they give you the choice to set the category. And I'm not too sure what to do with this. You see, I changed it to how to and style. And earlier we were under news and politics. And I don't necessarily want to make it accurate. I want to try to capture kind of a large audience. And a lot of these, these categories, they kind of fit. Science and technology, that's square on, but I don't know how many viewers there are for that. So I'm kind of rotating through these, and if you have any ideas where we can put it, comedy, I don't know. We should just kind of rotate through and see what the viewer numbers do. I do have some viewer photos. Let me show you that right here. Let me check the chat real quick, make sure everything is streaming just fine. All right, welcome everybody. Nice crowd there in chat. Viewer photos. It's taken me a while to get to these, but I did want to share some of these images with you. Let me get this all resized. Give me just a second here. Okay, this comes to us courtesy of Adam Davis. This was on May 22nd in southwest Ohio. And you can see there, it looks like a pretty good storm there. Most of what you see here is an anvil, and that's what all this stuff is. It's elevated rain, cloud material at the top of the cumulonimbus cloud, and then we have the actual updraft base, which is right in this area here, and you kind of picture that as a column going up into the storm, and we got the inflow going into that, up into the storm like that. And it's possible that some of this on this side out here, this is probably a secondary storm that's kind of seeding the storm further to the east. And that's why I think that anvil has kind of a rainy base. That's got to be another storm downstream. Anyway, I see looks like maybe a little bit of a flanking line. No, that's too far away. That's probably not what that is. And looks like a little bit of a weak lowering there. Most of the precipitation right in this area, probably that's where I would expect the hail to be. All right, more photos. I think that's a close-up of the same storm. It does have definitely an outflowish appearance looking at this cloud material here. But, yeah, a little bit of a lowering there. Another shot there by Adam Davis. Again, this is southwest Ohio, May 22nd. And this comes to us courtesy of David Moore. This is in Colorado on the 27th of May. And I didn't see what I think the subject was in the email, and I kind of forgot the details. But this looks like a classic Colorado storm there. It's got kind of a dry appearance. You've got the shelf cloud, indicating it's probably a little bit outflowish there, and a pretty solid updraft mass there. This is another shot from David Moore, May 27th. At, I'm going to guess that's 2217Z. Looks like kind of an LP-ish storm there. I don't know, maybe a little bit of a hybrid. And yeah, this looks like a pretty classic outflowish type storm. You can see it's got kind of a convex appearance to that shelf cloud, and very spectacular. So even with the outflow dominant storms, you can really get some nice structure. And yeah, that's all I got on that. So anyway, that's the directory where I keep all the viewer photos. I'm finally figuring out a system that works, and yeah, there's some goodies in there too. That's yeah, I like that one right there. This is Ryan Toomey's on April 10th, showing structure there in Miami. Very classic looking supercell appearance there. Nice tail cloud coming into that thing, and you can kind of see the dry slot working its way into that circulation right there. So this is probably the area I would want to watch there for a possible tornado. All right, let's head into tonight's weather. Not much to talk about here on the Great Plains. Some people are getting weather, especially out in the Midwest. So here in Texas, we've got southeast winds, dew points around the 70s. Well, it really depends where you are. There's a little bit of a moisture deficit there around the central Texas area. And here's kind of a little quiz. Are the parcels in this area here better than the parcels in this area here? So the answer to this kind of boils down to theta E. But conceptually, we got to keep in mind moisture is, I think, about 3 or 4 times more important than temperature. So what do we see here? Temperature change of about 6 degrees. Warms from 94 to 100. Okay, that's a 6-degree increase, which is good for storms. And then we have a dew point of 70, and I'm going to round that to maybe 62. That's an 8-degree decrease in moisture. So the that moisture decrease is actually much more significant, and that takes our theta E down in that area. So we would expect to see elevated storms, high LCLs, and probably outflowish storms. So the parcels here are better. That nice 70-degree dew point is what we want, and that's why I plot the green shading there showing where the moisture is, and this all corresponds to dew point. So the moisture axis looks like it's out over Arkansas. A little bit of evapotranspiration from that area, maybe some moisture coming in from the remains of Alberta a couple days ago. So dew points widespread, low to mid 70s. Weak stationary front through the southern plains there, dividing the cap rock from the lower plains, and then we have a little, looks like a little stable wave, maybe kind of maybe a closed low in that area. That's right around, looks like Hutchinson, Kansas, and then a cold front extending up through the Kansas City and looks like the Quad Cities area. We do have moisture out on the high plains, but I'm not too sure how ridged we are. 60s making it almost all the way to Colorado there. A little bit of upslope, but most of the flow is heading kind of oblique to the terrain. All right, yeah, the national picture looks like this. Looks very much like late June, except for with the front there in West Texas. Got a frontal system moving through the northwest, Montana, Idaho, northern Nevada. So there's probably a good push of cold air coming onto the coast in that area. And then it looks like there's a little bit of polar air lurking up to the north out in northern Manitoba and Hudson Bay. So that's what we've been dealing with through April and early May, but it looks like finally we've warmed up enough where that's not going to be a problem shutting things down. In fact, it'll provide some boundaries down into the northern plains and the Midwest area. Radar picture this evening shows not a whole lot going on across most of the country. We have had a pretty good MCS, the same one that was in Kansas. It's pretty much plowed eastward, and we've had a lot of wind reports, and we'll cover that in a second. Another area of storms up in southwestern North Dakota and also Montana up there getting a little bit of upslope, and we can see that with the wind flow here. Obviously there's high pressure up in Alberta and Saskatchewan, low pressure down to the south, which I'm coloring in red, so that means that the pressure gradient is running something like that right there, the wind flow giving us a definite upslope component in that part of Montana. And then let's see, down in Georgia, also getting some storms in that area. And I'm looking at the pressure field here, just kind of seeing what's going on. Higher pressure offshore. It looks like the Bermuda high is at it. So I'm kind of outlining the Bermuda High. Looks like the furthest extent is somewhere like that. So we're just getting kind of a general southerly component coming up onto the Gulf Coast region. Surface chart shows us a little bit more of that high pressure area up there in Manitoba. So let's outline that. Looks like a cold front running something like that. Warm front extending all the way to Labrador. And looks like quite a bit of cold air up there. It's kind of amazing. You could hop a plane. This would be, I'm trying to remember the names of the towns. I guess Rankin Inlet, looking at -5 Celsius, which is about 23 Fahrenheit. And just looking at all the temperatures around here, looks like we're running anywhere from about, I got to convert this Celsius to Fahrenheit. It's about 18 degrees Fahrenheit all the way up to, looks like 41 right there around Coppermine, Northwest Territories. So very cold there. It would be nice to fly up there, and well, in Texas, yeah, I sure want to, but I'm sure some of you up in Michigan and Minnesota would rather pass on that. 250 millibar flow, showing the persistent troughing on the west coast. This is kind of a shallow trough, and we've been in this pattern for quite a while. So most of the jet energy coming onto California and heading up into Montana, Wyoming, and the Dakotas. So we haven't seen much of that down south, but the subtropical jet, that's definitely active, and we can kind of outline that, kind of a broad, modest flow. And there it is, subtropical jet. And then I'm going to draw the polar front jet in red. So there it is right there. So they're not really, they're kind of both doing their own thing there, and looks like the ridge is not built up pretty far into the Great Plains. And we're seeing winds anywhere from about 55 up to, looks like 80 at Amarillo. And that's this morning. I don't have the newer charts yet. 700 millibar chart. You can see the effect of the ridging. Temperatures at 700 millibars, which is about 10,000 feet, up to 15 Celsius. Oklahoma City, Fort Worth, 14 at Amarillo, and even a very warm 17 at Del Rio. So that's kind of a result there of the ridging, the subsidence within that high, and just the general adiabatic warming taking place, helping to raise those temperatures. So it's going to be very hard to get storms going up in that kind of environment. Cap is definitely weaker up to the north. You can see the values up in that area running from about 6 to 7. So that's kind of on the good side of 10 Celsius. And out over the Missouri and Kansas and Tennessee, where they've had the storms, running about 7 to 8. So those are good numbers to keep in your head. But you can, of course, use the model output and kind of track the temperature changes over the next 24 hours to see what the cap is going to do. And also you can monitor the height rises. There's the 850 millibar flow showing 25 to 30 knots, kind of a weak low-level jet across Texas. And we definitely felt that wind. You saw the drone footage earlier. Drone was definitely being bounced around a lot. I had the controller there and actually lost signal with the drone because it went behind some pine trees. And fortunately, the return to home kicked in, and I was looking for the drone, and I turned around and it was behind me, coming down at about 100 feet off the ground. So that was great to hear, because that would have been sad if we lost that drone, our new one. Okay, 30 to 40 knot winds, and that gave us those winds here in Texas. Most of that wind is heading up into Missouri, so the moisture feed is heading for the Central Plains and not necessarily for the high plains. One reason why they're kind of shut down today. There's the 1,000 through 500 millibar thickness. So it definitely looks like a frontal system in the Great Basin area, and I'm going to put that front from about Salt Lake City to Reno and Sacramento, and then maybe up north into Gillette, west of Bismarck. Looks like kind of a warm front through that area, and I can't really pick it up much further than that. I guess it connects back up to this Quebec system. We analyzed that earlier. And you can see the Bermuda High there. It's not too strong, but you can see that 1016 contour grazing the east coast. And we've got a very deep feed of tropical air. And we haven't had this in the past couple weeks. We're only just now really setting that up. So that's going to bring in some deep, rich moisture into the Gulf Coast region and possibly into Texas. Okay, let me pick an area here. I guess I know a lot of you are probably tired of Texas, but we are a little bit Texas-centric here. And most of this is meant to just, give you techniques and information to use for your own region. So let's head through this and look at the temperatures this afternoon. You can see they were up above 100 along the Texas Cap Rock there. And we can kind of see some evidence of that weak front there in Oklahoma, probably reinforced by those storms that went through this area last night. Let's see what's going to happen overnight. And I'm kind of looking at the frontal boundary, kind of seeing what it's doing. And it looks like it's right in that area there. And then we go into the afternoon tomorrow. Heating really comes up there, and I think I've kind of lost the boundary. I think it's right in here where you got that backing of the winds. And let's look at the temperatures. 88 to 90 to 92 down in this area here in red, and up to the north, 87, 86. So that's how you want to analyze these charts. Let me give you a better look at that. So this is tomorrow afternoon, and that boundary is going to be moving north. And if we had any upper level lift and the cap wasn't as strong, that would be a boundary that I would be watching overnight to see where it's going to end up tomorrow. And you can see another boundary out there tomorrow in Arkansas. This is during the morning hours. Looks like some of that convective activity overnight laid down that boundary there. And then we'll see what's going to happen later in the day. Wow, I was kind of distracted by all these violet colors here. Looks like a bit of a heat wave there in the Amarillo area. 105 there, 106 at Lubbock, and 108 at Carlsbad. Looks like a very warm day. 108 at Fort Stockton. So you can see that there's some pretty strong downslope flow through this area. That's probably air that's been sitting over the plateau region for a couple days, and now it gets to go downslope and pick up that adiabatic warming. And then off to the east, and just checking out that outflow boundary. I'm kind of losing it there, but yeah, there it is. See Little Rock there, 90, 81 up at Harrison, and that puts that boundary right through there. So that gives us kind of a rough idea of what the setup is going to be for tomorrow. I can already see convection breaking out in that very warm air. It's probably just so warm that it just overcomes all the capping. So it looks like we got a little bit of an outflow pool going up at about 18 to 19 Z in the Lubbock area, and there we go. So looks like some storms there for the Panhandle, or that's going to be West Texas there. And it looks like that propagates eastward towards the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I would imagine it would probably be starting to fall apart. Yeah, I don't see much evidence of that after tomorrow night. So anyway, probably some good storms there in the Cap Rock likely tomorrow. Okay, I think we're probably up to the satellite. Let me find a good one here. I guess we'll look at the water vapor imagery, and I'll get caught up on chat here. So it looks like some very dry air there in Arkansas. Okay, let me move this over to my main screen. And Sue M, yeah, hit by severe thunderstorms, 2 p.m., 60 miles an hour winds, hail. Yeah, 26,000 people lost power. Quite an event there. That reminds me, the SPC storm reports. Let me put that up here. Got to move over about 15 or 20 tabs here. There we go. Yeah, there it is. The storm reports. All the blue there, that's wind reports. So it kind of fans out from southern Illinois out to Indiana, Cincinnati, Louisville, Lexington. And let's see when that happened. There's all those wind reports. Starts out at 1445 Z. So it looks like kind of a morning event there. And they kind of taper off a little bit towards... No, they actually don't. We've had wind reports all day. It may be just now tapering out. So yeah, this has been a major wind event. Kentucky, Indiana, Tennessee, North Dakota, those guys too. Okay, but as far as tornadoes, very spotty. And most of those have been in Idaho. Atomic City. I wonder if any of the chase teams made it up there. Look at that. That's probably a good thing to look at on the satellite photo 2236Z. We'll see if we can pull it up and look at this Idaho tornado outbreak. So let me grab the right window here and we'll head into that. Okay, localized sector. Let's see if we can... Yeah, there we go. That's perfect. Okay, hopefully this doesn't disrupt the stream. This is kind of sucking some bandwidth. 0 drop frames, very good. Okay, we'll roll this back a little bit. And there it is, yeah. Look at that. That's probably an isolated supercell that developed there, and my knowledge of geography, we went through there back in 2001. If you look around my website, I think you might be able to find that blog there. But Snake River Valley runs something like that. That Atomic City, I know they've got an old nuclear facility in that area. Arco's in this area. The Mountains of the Moon, or I'm not sure. There's that weird rock field out there southwest of Arco, and you should definitely see that sometime. Anyway, yeah, very huge anvil fanning out from that, and it heads into the mountainous regions along the Montana border, and that gets to be about 2242Z. And looks like another cell developing on the southern flank right there. So let me check when those tornadoes are, and maybe I can show you what the cell looked like when there were tornadoes on the ground. Let's see, 2219 to 22... Yeah, it kind of looks like a... maybe it's kind of a cyclic supercell there, because there's reports all the way from about 22 to 01Z. So that's kind of an interesting event there. I guess there's probably going to be some papers written about that. So again, we're looking at Idaho. Let me take one more look at that. Maybe I can pull up the infrared. Let me grab that real quick. That might help cut through some of that dense overcast. You know, it looks like slant range is kind of a problem. This particular satellite, not very good for picking up the west coast. But anyway, we'll roll that back. There's a storm. Very cold tops, and yeah, new development right there. Okay, elsewhere around the country, let's take a look. This is the visible imagery from right now. They've had some storms up in northern Missouri. So this is what it looked like earlier today. You can see they're popping up in the Bethany area along the Iowa border. We roll that forward, and you can see they're kind of oriented along a line, and that's that cold front that we drew up through the Kansas City to the Quad Cities area. So what does the environment look like for those storms? Let's take a look. We'll go to the high resolution rapid refresh. 0Z. We'll make sure that we're not sampling a cold pool. We can do that by going to the temperature and just kind of looking at the field, looking for bubbles, that kind of thing. And I don't know, it looks like maybe it is picking up a little bit of outflow in that area. So I want to be sure to click on an area to get a sounding that's kind of out in the feed of moisture, in the unmodified air. So I'm going to set that up right in that spot, nice and warm. This is probably the air that's feeding into those storms. And there we go. So yeah, pretty warm, 90 degrees, some beefy upper 50s moisture, not that great, so I'm sure those storms are a little bit high-based, but yeah, we definitely got some instability there. And look at this right here, we got a little bit of D-Cape. So that's downdraft Cape running about, let's see, D-Cape 1444, that's pretty high there. So those storms are definitely going to be kind of outflowish. One saving grace is the upper level wind's not that strong there, so that's going to tend to interfere with the developing updrafts. It's going to produce kind of a clustery appearance there. Also, Georgia has been getting some storms. Let me move this here. Yeah, look at that. Definitely some sort of boundary surging southward from about Atlanta eastward to South Carolina. So I'm going to stop that about midway. And those are those cells along that boundary. And we can sample that area too. So there's the southeast U.S. There's the storms being picked up there by the high-resolution rapid refresh. And I'm going to, just to be careful, I'm going to pick up the temperature chart here. And you can see the outflow mass is actually very large. So putting out right in that area should be perfect for getting a proximity sounding. So there's the air mass going to that storm there. Looks like the LCLs are a little bit low there, and not a whole lot of instability there. You can see the capes. Yeah, actually they're up at about 2,000. So let's see. Got some dry air aloft. You can see that in this layer here from about 600 up to 300 millibars. And as a result, there's the wet. This is the wet bulb curve right there. And this is the D-cape line. So in between there, quite a bit of D-cape even there in Georgia. So they're running about 1154. Anything over 1,000 indicates the possibility for outflowish storms with strong wind. However, there in Georgia also, upper level flow is kind of weak. So a lot of this thunderstorm activity is being driven by the cold pool. There's not upper level winds to drive the storms eastward. So basically just wherever that cold pool is flowing out, that's where new cells develop. And you can kind of see it. These storms don't really go anywhere, like this cell right here. It kind of sits there, it goes through its stages and becomes a dissipating cell, and then more forming out ahead of that. Let me check and make sure that was visible. Okay, yeah. Let me move this. That's the cell I'm talking about right there. And you can see that when I scroll it, that overshooting top just kind of stays there. And in fact, it's kind of feeding to the north. And then we see new cells developing out in this area. So that's one thing that's cutting back a little bit on the severe activity. Anything else? Okay. Let me get back to that chat there. Erica Baker, Coffeyville, Kansas, 86 over 72. Ryan Toomey's there. Muggy hot Thursday there in South Florida. Hello to Ron Chalfant there. Ryan Toomey's drying out from the rain. Willie Greenway, maybe trying to stay dry there in Georgia. Funmatech here, and Michelle Curlin. Sue M is glad to have power. Yeah, that's always a relief. And you know, I bought a generator about 3 years ago at the end of 2014 because we were having power outages from storms. As soon as I bought the generator, we haven't had any other power outages. 3 years with no problems, so that's just the way it goes, I guess. Yeah, oh yeah, the 5-year anniversary of El Reno. Yeah. Tragic day there. Shirley Keast, 66 in Michigan. Willie Greenway reporting power out due to a brief storm. Hello to Carl Berghoff. Christian Fleck, 88 there in Yukon with a high 75 dew point. Many lessons learned from May 31st. And yeah, if you search my channel, I do have a extensive video about an hour looking at that storm with Glenn Robinson. He sat in, one of my friends, and I chased with him many years ago, and we sat there and kind of went over the storm using the radar, and I think we may have had some satellite imagery. Ryan Toomey's, oh yeah, mentioning that video. I appreciate that. Don't forget to hit the like button, indeed. Michelle Curlin, there's no more brilliant light than that which follows complete darkness. Remembering the chasers who died 5 years ago today, acknowledging those who live to continue the good works. Cthulhu loves LP Storms. Brian Toomey's Fort Lauderdale. Oh, okay. So, yeah, that's a little bit north of Miami, about 30, 40 miles. D is asking, what is one of your books that will help with identifying and locating shortwave troughs? I would probably go with Weather Analysis and Forecasting for that one. That's definitely a great book that builds on the weather forecasting handbook that I used to have. Summer Season Oven, Heat is On, Andrew Hotchkiss, Smaller Dew Point Depression. 101 there, Alexi Pinkston Walsh, hello. Bermuda High, Full On, Blast Cranking the Winds. Lost my place. Shirley Keast wants to visit Texas once in her life. Brett Dean, 75 over 71. Yeah, that's pretty muggy there. Reed Timmer is in North Dakota today. A little action up that way. Buffering. Don't have any drop frames here. You know what it was? We messed with a firewall and suddenly we're pushing out 1,500 kilobits per second, which is about double of what we had about a month ago. So, I don't know, all that technical stuff, it's hard to keep up on that. Let's see here. Beautiful backcountry in that part of the U.S. Talking about Idaho. And Clyde Hoadley finally got some rain. Okay. That brings us to the forecast. Let's look at that. All right. I'm going to use the high-resolution rapid refresh to see the next 12 hours or so. And there's that MCS there. I guess we didn't cover too much of that. I don't have a whole lot of archive data because that was several hours ago. Most of, I guess, the wind damage is kind of done. I guess maybe there's still a little bit going on, but anyway. Looks like that second MCS moving through western Kentucky, the Boot Heel of Missouri, and pretty dry in Texas. Looks like the tail end of that MCS moving into Arkansas and then dying out towards dawn there, just breaking up into some isolated showers. But you can see very June-like appearance, southerly winds, and this could be when we started vecting the sea breeze inland. So we'll have to keep an eye on that there. All right, Central Plains, of course, they got weather going on there. I guess that North Dakota storm is just up out of range. Deep southerly flow looks very, yeah, that also looks kind of like June. Yep, nothing going on. Very quiet night. So we'll go ahead and look at the upper air pattern. There's that trough out to the west. Ridge axis extends over the high plains out to North Dakota and South Dakota. So it's kind of amazing we did pull out that storm in that area. So lots of forcing for convection in that area. And then scrolling forward into tomorrow morning, looks like the ridge axis shifts eastward from about Oklahoma City up to about Omaha and Minneapolis. And then by evening, we've got this very strong trough aggressively moving through the northern Rockies there. I mean, that really kind of barged in there quick. We saw it like this earlier today, and then overnight it's already out into Montana. So this phases very well with heating. This is 15Z, 18Z. The sun is coming up, things are getting unstable, and this forcing is moving out into the high plains. So it could be a stormy day in parts of North Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, and especially wherever we have this cyclonic flow out ahead of that trough axis there. So we're going to see some storms breaking out there in the northern plains, and then overnight in MCS moving through, I guess that's barley country in that area. Lots of barley, and then as you get down into South Dakota and Iowa, Nebraska, then you get more into corn. Pretty good slug of upper energy coming into Iowa for Saturday. This is 21Z. The heating is coming back, so this area here could have some very strong lift, helping to break up whatever cap is in that area. So I would expect possibly some storms in that area for Saturday. And then Sunday, that trough moves out in the Great Lakes area, kind of out of the picture. And then it looks like we got kind of a weak trough coming in from Arizona. So that will be probably the next thing we'll watch over the weekend. You can see that Sunday we're under this ridge, high pressure over the Edwards Plateau. So that'll keep things kind of dry. And then you can see this next trough approaching the Colorado and New Mexico region. So right in that area there. So maybe some pretty good storms there for Sunday. So that's a pretty thorough picture of the forecast. So I'm going to hit this on the peak heating times. Friday, there's the peak heating, good line of storms there. I guess it probably fired early, considering it's that far east already. So Bismarck, Pierre, some good storms. Looks like some storms also in Texas. The high-resolution rapid refresh was breaking those out. No, that was the NAM that was breaking that out. That's the same model here. MCS overnight. And let's see what happens for Saturday. I think that's when that strong wave comes in. Yeah, okay. Storms breaking out there in eastern Iowa. Looks like we got a front coming south. See that right there? So that's going to definitely shut down the plains for at least a while until we start getting upslope flow in the high plains. However, we got that next trough coming in. Oh yeah, we got it. Yeah, this is a pretty huge high pressure area covering this entire area. And then here's our cold front moving into Arkansas and Texas on Sunday morning. Okay, so yeah, there's our storms breaking out. I guess that was on Sunday. We were looking at that little trough coming out of Arizona. So that'll be the next bit of weather. And let's look at the long term. There's the GFS. Start this out over the weekend, kind of move ahead, because the medium range is really where this model excels. So Sunday, big high pressure area moving into the plains. There it is right there. And I'm going to outline that polar high. So this is kind of like the last hurrah of Old Man Winter. And cold front will be extending down to the Gulf Coast region. And then you can see the return southerly flow on the high plains, helping to bring up a little bit of moisture and feed that convection right there on the high plains. Looks like not much upper air support to keep that stuff going overnight. Let me just check that real quick. Yeah, not much, just a little bit. Maybe moving into the Amarillo area. And then the setup for Monday, high pressure moves eastward. So now the southern plains gets back into southerly flow. Looks like a new frontal system moving into the northwest region. A couple little boundaries there, and maybe some upper level short waves affecting parts of the central plains on Monday. And you can see that high pressure just receding, kind of taking a track like that. And at this point, this is on Tuesday afternoon, kind of covering that area right there. And out west, that front continues moving into the Great Basin area. This is kind of also a push of Pacific cold air coming into the western U.S. I'm just going to kind of forward a little bit here. Looks like some fairly strong cyclogenesis coming up for Thursday next week. This is probably going to help refine a little boundaries in these areas here. So I would expect things to get active once again in Kansas. And then let's go into the following weekend, 8th, 9th, and 10th. Some chances for convection depending on where you are, and it's going to boil down to those mesoscale possibilities. We can't really tell very much this far out. This is the 204-hour chart, but it does look like we should be okay on boundaries. And I'm also looking at the upper level flow by looking at the thickness. That's those red lines on the chart. And let's see. It looks like there is some ridging across the plains, but I'm not seeing the Yeah, we probably got something like this going on. Probably a jet coming through the Central Plains right there, and you can see that Texas and Oklahoma, they're shut down, so that's probably about where that ridge is parked. Okay, for next weekend, let's see what happens. Looks like a backdoor front coming in. See that higher pressure out in the Great Lakes area. That's another little surge of cold air coming southeastward. The Gulf is still kind of open in Texas right there, so in between, we probably got a little boundary there, so that's going to help generate some storms there, and probably the Arkansas area. Yeah, there it goes right there. Okay, glad when the forecast works out. And we get back into the southerly flow, and another little hurricane coming in the bottom of the picture there. This is on the 276-hour chart, so we'll just have to wait and see on that. Does anybody know what the next name is for tropical cyclones? I don't know, it just might be it. Anyway, yeah, last time when Alberto formed, we had about a week where the model was generating vortices and pushing them north. And finally, I guess around the 168-hour point, the models kind of converged, and maybe 120, 160 hours, somewhere in there, the models really started picking up a lot better on the storm, and we saw the European and GFS kind of converging, and a more consistent track into the eastern Gulf there. So anyway, we're still kind of a ways out. We're going to have to wait at least another week to know what this is going to do, but this particular incarnation of the GFS brings it into the Galveston area. And I would bet good money that it's not going to make landfall there. We're just going to see maybe tomorrow night making landfall here, maybe another one here, maybe another one coming like around to Saskatchewan like that. We'll just have to see. Okay, the general weather picture looks like a couple of high-pressure outbreaks coming in through most of the Midwest and the plains, which is good. That'll supply us with some boundaries. The tropical storm is, pretty far off, and we're not sure what that's going to do, but this is almost a certainty here. We're going to have some sort of polar outbreak. It may not be that strong, but something should be coming out of Canada. And there's another one lined up, so looks like we're going to get definitely some boundaries set up, and that might help shift the ridge west like that, because when we get enough cold air in the Midwest and the Great Basin area, that we get some troughing in this region, and that kind of displaces the ridge a little bit west, and you can see the absence of precipitation here on the 16th in the western U.S. So that might kind of break that pattern we've had of the troughs coming into California and Nevada, kind of parking out there, ejecting into North Dakota, and then just rinse and repeat. So this will probably give us a little change here. All right. And I think that's going to be it. That's about all I got. Let me just take one last look at chat. 45 minutes in, not too bad. Okay. More rain coming in a few hours for Sue M there. More tropical activity. Beryl. Yeah, Beryl, that's an interesting name. I can definitely see that as a U.S. landfalling hurricane there. It just kind of has that sound there. All right, let's see. Yeah, that's about it. I appreciate you all watching the webcast. Let me get the closeout music and make sure that's everything. We did the photos, and all right. So we'll see what happens tomorrow night. I can't promise that we'll be on. I'm probably going to be on the road at that time, but you can check in and see if we have a stream or not. And same thing on Saturday. I don't know if we'll be able to do that either, but I think by Sunday we'll be able to pick up the weathercast. So anyway, thank you all for joining, and we will see you soon. Bye-bye.